What if we could edit our own DNA? This is the big question at the center of this video. Imagine a world where everyone has the ability to edit their own DNA. You could potentially cure genetic diseases, enhance your physical abilities, or even change how you look. It sounds like science fiction, but it's actually becoming more of a reality every day. But should we really be messing with our genes in this way? First, let's talk about what gene editing is and how it works. In simple terms, genes are like little instruction manuals inside our cells that tell our bodies how to work. They're made of DNA, which is like a long string of letters that spell out different instructions. Sometimes those instructions have errors in them, and when they do, things can go wrong. Like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and Huntington's disease are all caused by errors in just one gene. Gene editing is a new technology that lets us find those errors and fix them. One of the most popular gene editing tools is called CRISPR-Cas9. It was discovered in 2012 and is named after a type of bacteria that uses it as an immune system. Bacteria use CRISPR-Cas9 to remember and fight off viruses by storing snippets of viral DNA in their own genome. Then if the same virus attacks again, CRISPR-Cas9 can recognize it and start cutting up its genetic material, basically cutting out the bad stuff so the body can't get sick from it anymore. Scientists realized they could harness this system for good by rewriting the bacterial DNA to cut wherever they wanted it to. Suddenly, we had a cheap and easy way to edit genes. CRISPR-Cas9 has been used to edit genes in everything from mosquitoes to pigs to humans. One day, it might even help us cure all sorts of genetic diseases. But while that sounds great, there are some potential problems with editing genes, especially in human embryos. The first problem is that it's kind of tricky. Even though CRISPR-Cas9 is a lot cheaper and easier than previous gene editing techniques, it's still pretty complicated. There's a lot that can go wrong, and we don't always know what the consequences will be. That's why most gene editing experiments on embryos are done in a lab and haven't yet been tested on people. The second problem is that it's kind of dangerous. When you edit a gene, you could potentially make things worse instead of better. For example, in 2017, a Chinese researcher edited the genes of two twin girls before they were born. He said he was trying to make them resistant to HIV, but the experiment went wrong and the girls ended up with extra genetic material that they shouldn't have had. And it's not just mistakes like this that we need to worry about. When we edit a gene, we could also accidentally turn it off or turn something else on that shouldn't be turned on. Or maybe we'll edit the wrong gene entirely. And because these changes can happen in the embryo, they're permanent and they'll affect every cell in the person's body. So it's really important that we be 100% sure that any gene editing we do is safe before we try it on actual people. But the third problem is a lot bigger. It's a moral issue. Some people say that we should never mess with someone's genes, no matter what. They're worrying that gene editing is a slippery slope that will lead to all sorts of genetic discrimination and inequality. What if rich people could buy edits that make them smarter or prettier or stronger? What if they could even edit the genes of their future children to make sure they have certain traits? This is all possible with current gene editing technology, but it's controversial. Some people say that this is the next step in human evolution and that we should embrace it. Others say that it's a dangerous idea that could ruin our society. So what do you think? Should we be allowed to edit our own DNA? Let me know in the comments below. If you want to learn more about gene editing, check out the links in the description. Now let's get back to the video. In the future, you may be able to download songs, movies, and games instantly onto your brain. That may sound crazy, but scientists are getting closer to making brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, a reality. BCIs are devices that can read and write information directly from the brain. They're still in the early stages of development, but one day they may allow us to control computers with our thoughts. People with paralysis could use BCIs to walk again or talk to each other through text messages sent directly from their brains. Soldiers could use BCs to control drones from miles away, and athletes could use them to control exoskeletons that give them superpowers. But BCs aren't just about helping people with disabilities or giving soldiers and athletes special abilities. They could also be used to enhance our brains in other ways. For example, imagine a world where we could upload songs, movies, and games directly into our brains. It would be like having your own personal theater or concert hall in your head. Or think about how much easier it would be to learn a new language if you could just download the vocabulary and grammar rules straight into your brain, and it's not just theoretical. Researchers at the University of California, San Francisco have already developed a BCI that allows monkeys to play games by moving a cursor on a screen with their thoughts. And a company called Elon Musk's Neuralink is developing a BCI that will allow humans to control computer cursors with their thoughts. But here's the thing, editing our own DNA could make BCs even more powerful. Imagine if we could edit our genes to make our brains better at processing visual or auditory information. Or what if we could make our brains store memories more efficiently so we could remember everything we want to remember forever? These are just a few of the possibilities that scientists are exploring. And while they're still in the early stages of research, who knows what the future will hold? But it's not just about making our brains work better. Editing our own DNA could also protect us from mental illness. One of the biggest risks of living in a complex modern world is mental illness. Depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders are becoming more common than ever. But what if we could edit our genes to make ourselves more resilient? One day, we might be able to remove the genes that make us vulnerable to mental illness and replace them with ones that give us more emotional stability. That might sound like a far-fetched idea, but it's actually being studied by researchers at the Salk Institute for Biological Studies. They're looking for genes that play a role in depression and anxiety, and they're hoping to develop a test that can identify people who are at risk. But here's the thing, even if we could edit our genes to make ourselves more resilient, would we want to? What does it say about us as human beings if we were not allowed to experience the full range of human emotions, both positive and negative? And what if we could edit out other undesirable traits like selfishness, greed, and hatred? Where does that leave us as a species? These are all difficult questions that we need to answer as we continue to explore the possibilities of editing our own DNA. As we learn more about genetics and how our genes affect our behavior, we lions need to decide what kind of traits we want to edit out and what kind of traits we want to keep. It's a tough call, but it's one we lions have to make if we want to create a better future for humanity. The fact is, we're on the verge of some incredible breakthroughs in genetics and neuroscience. Who knows what the future will hold? Maybe one day we'll all have superpowers. But that raises another question. Would you use your superpowers to help others, or would you use them for evil? What if someone tried to take your superpowers away? How would you defend yourself? These are all important questions that we need to think about as we move forward. The technology to edit our own DNA is becoming more accessible all the time, but we need to be careful. We need to make sure that we're not creating more problems than we're solving. And we need to be aware of the ethical implications of what we're doing. But one thing is for sure, the future of humanity will be shaped by our decisions around gene editing. It's up to us to decide what kind of future we want to create. So what do you think? Is editing our own DNA a good thing or a bad thing? Let me know in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Thanks for watching.